Costco issues a terrifying warning on the economy and on consumer purchasing power as they miss market revenue expectation and their stock plummets. Now, we're also going to help answer the question today, what can this miss in revenue tell us about the economy and the state of the consumer? Now, on top of that, we're going to go into several different indicators on consumer health, and we're going to go over several different indicators on the economic recession that more than likely we're in right now. On top of that, you guys, we're also going to go into a housing market report and data that's showing that buyers are fleeing the housing market right now in record numbers for this time of year. So we got a lot to cover today. Don't forget, you guys, as always, if you find value in these videos, like the video, comment on the video, and always share this video. Mitch Vexler, sir, how are you today?
Good. It's kind of a gray, cold, dreary day here. But other than that, it's all good.
Yeah, it is a little bit really great day to make some videos.
Exactly.
This article came out on March 6th from MarketWatch titled, Costco says customers could stay cautious due to inflation and tariffs. When it rains on everyone, CEO says. So a couple important things here. Shares of Costco slipped after hours on Thursday after the membership warehouse retailer reported mixed second quarter results and warned that shoppers could stay choiceful as they navigate higher prices and tariffs. This goes on. Still, as more shoppers gravitate to mass retailers to look for bargains, the company said that same-store sales growth for things outside of food was strong, after cost of living increases in prior years kept demand subdued for things outside of the basics. You'll notice here the stock ended down 6.07% on Friday, so one-day drop of 6.07% on Friday. It's going to be very interesting to see how this company opens up on Monday. They're going to open 28 new stores, 3 of which would be relocations for the fiscal year, which is set to run through August. And after expanding hours at its gas stations in North America, it said extending store hours was not off of the table, but said there are no plans to do it at this time. During the chain's earnings calls, Chief Financial Officer Gary said that shoppers are still showing that willingness to spend, but they're being very choiceful when they're spending their dollars. We think that's likely to continue and maybe even become more choiceful as the impact of some return of inflation and the potential impact of tariffs could flow through as well. But this has been going on for so long. These people get this so wrong. We've been in this environment for over 2 years, almost 3 years in quantitative tightening. It's not just Trump. It's not just the tariffs. It's many, many things. Chief executive said that the tough foreign exchange backdrop is likely to endure through the months ahead. He said about a third of Costco's U.S. sales were products imported from other nations, with less than half of them coming from these 3 countries here. He said while the impact of tariffs was tough to predict, the company would try to minimize the impact of cost increases for its members. Costco reported after Walmart, who's also down. So it's not just Costco. Walmart's also suffering, and their stock ended Friday down 3% at $91.72. They're saying that Walmart is one of the safest bets in the retail world thanks to its size and ability to keep prices lower. But they've recently warned of their first year-over-year decline in quarterly profits in 3 years. Target, meanwhile, warned of possible price increases in response to President Donald Trump's tariff, which amount to tax on imports. So we got multiple companies giving warnings. We got Costco, we got Walmart, we got Target. All has to do with consumer spending, inflation, tariffs, and unaffordability. Let's just read this last part here. As shoppers face higher costs of living, the biggest retailers such as Costco and Walmart have made deeper inroads with wealthier consumers looking for a break from inflation. Costco put up sales gains in December and in January and has said its pharmacy business is showing strong growth as drugstore chains struggle. Mitch Vexler, sir, can you explain to the viewers and can you articulate what can we learn from Costco's warning about consumers' choiceful, that's a new word, right? That's interesting, choiceful spending. What can we learn here, sir?
What you can really learn from that memo is the incompetence of whoever wrote the memo and the people at the stores, i.e. Costco, who are spewing this nonsense about, well, these tariffs are a problem. Really? Okay, let's break it down. I don't watch the Mexican peso, but I do watch the euro. I watch the Australian dollar. and I watch the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar is 70 cents on the US dollar. Euro is $1.08 on the US dollar. The Australian dollar is 68 cents on the US dollar. So why would somebody make a statement that isn't even totally baked, not give you any evidence, and then turn around and blame it on the tariffs? Well, could it be that what they're really doing is trying to create a cover for their own future problems that will show up in their stock price? That's what they're doing.
Mitch, I feel like that was a rhetorical question. Was that a rhetorical question?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's a rhetorical question that it seems like every CEO or company is guilty until proven innocent. I mean, I'm sick and tired of it. If they're not jacking up the prices, they're laying off a whole bunch of people. Meanwhile, their stock goes up because of how leveraged and outrageous our whole system is. I mean, it makes me frustrated. Now, I want to show you some very important indicators on consumer purchasing power and consumer health. Take a look at this, Mitch. Starting with the University of Michigan consumer sentiment. Now, this is only the 10-year graph, and I wanted to show the 10-year graph because I wanted to show you guys before the pandemic, we're sitting at 99.8. It's been drugged down, basically plateauing in July of 2022. And since then, it's been going up a little bit, but not much. I wanted to show you that consumers know, although there's still some people spending, consumers know just how unaffordable it is because consumer sentiment right now is in the gutter. And that's probably because when you look here, this is real median household income in the United States. This is the 10-year look. We've been stuck at 2019 levels of income for years. In fact, listen to me, okay, adjusted for inflation. Okay, according to this chart, we're making less right now than we were in 2019. So you have all of this price explosion, all of these things, all of the cost of living expenses going up. Meanwhile, these CEOs are cashing in on the profit, hedge funds cashing in on the profit, these middlemen cashing in on the profit, fraud taking all of our money, and we make nothing more. We are stuck in this situation. We were being taken advantage of like crazy. As a result of not making money, you see the personal savings rate plummet. Again, this is a 10-year look. Look at the pre-pandemic. We're sitting about 6.2% up to the 7%. But right now, the ability for Americans to save is in the gutter. And don't forget, Piff, they changed this data. This data used to be way lower, but they went in before the elections and changed the personal savings rate and how it's calculated and boosted it up. But even with this fraudulent data, you see that we've been having no savings for about 2 years. So no income, no savings, bad sentiment, and debt that is absolutely exploding. You see that here with consumer loans. This is credit card debt sitting at $1.09 trillion. So instead of saving money, a lot of people are burying themselves in debt just to afford to live. There are people putting their house payment, their grocery store bills, food, water, clothing, education expenses on their credit cards. This is absolutely outrageous. And we know that because of the delinquency rate on credit cards is 3.08%. Now, this is a 10-year outlook. Again, before the pandemic, we're sitting about 2.5. Right now, we're at 3. Now, what's interesting is this has been finally starting to go down. I don't know if they changed this data as well because of the election. I'm questioning if this is really going down, but the trend is showing going down. But nevertheless, for the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, this has been skyrocketing upward again because we're not making enough money to pay our bills. But don't forget this, student loans have started. I'm going to read an article to talk to you guys about the impacts of these student loan delinquencies, which there's about 4 million people right now behind on their student loans who are throwing their purchasing power down the toilet because their credit is getting ravaged. But right now, school loans, 1.77 trillion. Take a look at this article, you guys. This came out on March 7th. Student loan delinquency rate skyrockets as 4 million borrowers are behind. After a 3-year pandemic pause and a resumption of federal student loan repayments, delinquency rates have doubled in just a few months, according to the Education Department. Roughly 4 million federal student loan borrowers are already behind on payments, and the payments haven't even been started for what? A year? A sharp spike in distress that has alarmed policymakers and advocates. I wonder if maybe you should never have turned that off to begin with. I wonder if people have such strong apathy where they just imagine that school loans are going to go away. And I wonder if the last president of the United States promised that school loans are going to go away. And that never happened. So all those people that were promised school loans were going to go away, I bet you they stopped making payments and now their credit is ruined. I'm not trying to be Miss Negative Nancy here or Mrs. Pessimistic, but my God, I just want people to pay attention to what they're doing, how they're spending money, what's really going on in the economy, and understand how leveraged up everything is. Can you articulate and can you explain to the viewers, Mitch, what you believe the impact of these school loans defaulting will be? What impact is that going to have on a recession and the economy?
You have two issues. First of all, the personal savings going down, okay, and credit card issues, as in bankruptcies, going down. That's not mathematically possible. They don't occur like that, right? They're exact opposites. And that ties into, so there's a conflict, but that ties into what you're saying as far as the cost of the education people have received and how much they have been debted up as a cost ramification of the education that they have received. Well, in theory, if debt is forgiven, depending what the IRS does or what the government does, do you realize that that debt forgiven is taxable? So it's a very difficult question to answer because one way or the other, if the debt forgiveness is taxable, well, okay, where's that money going to come from to pay the debt forgiveness tax? Where's the money going to come from to pay the debt, given the fact that the reports that you just read from the Fed are both wrong? Credit card debt is expanding. It must expand. Savings are going down because mom and pop are out of money. 37% of the population is in harm's way of bankruptcy. And the only thing that's separating from bankruptcy is $9,000, of which $7,000 is the real estate tax. Clearly, the money isn't there. So one way or the other, the defaults are going to spiral out of control. Either the government gets involved at the federal level to fix this mess and calls it what it is in order to reset it, which means eliminate the real estate tax, restore the balance sheet, which restores money in people's pocket, or the system blows to shreds. Binary choice.
Well, Mitch, American lower class and middle class are getting absolutely bamboozled right now. I mean, I can't even barely breathe. I can't even save my money right now. I'm working like an absolute lunatic right now. I mean, it's unhealthy. I know I need to take a break, but I can't take a break. If I take a break, I'm going to be out in the streets. This is not an America that I love to be in right now. But speaking of America, let's go into some more data that suggests that we have been avoiding recession and probably are already in recession for quite some time. Take a look at these indicators. The first one I want to remind the viewers of, is the 10-year and the 2-year maturity inversion. It also actually just recently inverted again. It looks like just right here, it's uninverted. This is an indicator of an incoming recession. The fact that it inverted at all went under that black line is the signal of a recession. The uninversion leads us to recession, and that's exactly what's happening so far. However, understand as well that the inflation is like a smoke screen. It's like gaslighting us and gaslighting this data. Now we have additional data sources. When we go to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, you guys see right here, the GDP Now estimate is now giving us an estimate of a negative 2.4% as of March 6, 2025 for the Q1 of 2025. So they're essentially now indicating the start of potential recession. Here's one of the reasons why we haven't gone in recession yet. That is the government deficit spending. In other words, the government spending our money that they don't have. They just put that expense on our children's future. But right now we're sitting at $839 billion. What I really wanted to show you is the government deficit spending over the last 5 years. We should have gone into a recession or depression, but in 2020, the deficit was $3.1 trillion. That's for lockdowns. I understand that a little bit. 2021 was $2.77 trillion. Lockdowns, COVID, I understand that a little bit, but look at the last 3 years. There's no excuse for this type of deficit. This type of deficit is only kicking the recessionary can down the road. This is also very interesting, Mitch. We finally have a situation to where the overnight reverse repo market may be ending. Whatever they're doing, the administration is doing to get the inflation out of the system is good because the reverse repo market is an indicator of excess inflation. But right now there's only 136, it's still a lot lot of money, but only 136 billion, getting as low as to about 63 billion. On top of that, the trajectory of unemployment has been going up. Even though it looks like it's been going down just this last couple of times here, it's not. Look at the trajectory. Now, when unemployment goes up, you guys, that is a massive indicator of a recession as well. We're sitting at 4.1%, but we've also had numerous recessions where unemployment was under 4.1% when going into recession. Multiple times has that happened. The actual unemployment rate isn't necessarily a strong indicator of recession, but the trajectory of that unemployment is. And honestly, if they didn't change the way that these things were calculated, we would probably all have a better indication of what was really going on. But as consumers, we got to go against fraud, deception, and greed, and it's not easy at all to understand what's going on. Plus, we got to make sure we don't get kicked out on the street. So I got to continuously pay my bills, in other words. But Mitch, can you tell the viewers the difference between a recession and a depression? What are the differences?
The real difference is the amount of people that are unemployed. So in the Great Depression, the unemployment level hit somewhere between 23 and 25%. Our math, based on what we've been looking at due to all the current problems, but for creating additional frauds, if things got really bad, we would end up in a Greater Depression, which would be about 35% unemployment. Again, it's not that the world implodes, but it does for an awful lot of people. And that becomes what the problem is. And your point about the deficit, I'm going to do the best I can here to try and explain something. The deficit is money that would be used to pay down principal, but for the fact that it's being used to pay interest on the principal. The principal is compound cumulative fraud. We've proven it. That is what it is at the state's level. Well, it's also the exact same definition at the federal level. The amount of money that they print, the Federal Reserve, when they print that excess cash for political purposes that has nothing to do with the economy, they pump money into the system. That money has to go somewhere. It goes into Wall Street. It pumps all the values up. It's a fraud. It's not real. They change the definitions. And when they change the definitions of the CPI to coincide with the fact that they're printing money, and the printing money creates the inflation, they change the definitions. CPI is a lie. They print money, which creates inflation, pushes the values up, and then they realize, oh, well, we have to service the debt, as in pay on the interest of that amount of money that they have printed. It's a fraud upon a cumulative fraud. That's the problem here. The deficit will keep going because what Doge is doing, they're focusing on how to stop the principal, right? They want to get rid of the fraud at the principal level. That doesn't address what it is that I've been pounding the table on, which is the interest associated with the principal. And that's what's happening at the state level through the school districts. Bottom line is, at both sides, federal and state, you've got compound cumulative fraud and compound cumulative interest on the fraud, which is the principal. So the deficit that is occurring at the federal level is because they can't pay down the principal. Doge is working to pay down the principal, but you're missing the biggest point. It's the cost of the carry on the interest on the principal. And that is what's going to lead to a Greater Depression if they don't get their act together and fix this fast.
Let's hope that they do that, Mitch. Now, what I want to talk about is the housing market. And I'm going to show the viewers just how much of the housing market goes into GDP. But before I show you guys that, let me show you how many people are canceling their purchase contracts and fleeing from the housing market entirely. This article is titled 1 in 7 pending home sales are getting canceled, the highest share during this time of year on record. Few cities here, Atlanta, Las Vegas, my home city of Houston, and parts of Florida are seeing the highest share of deals falling through, with supply piling up in those areas. I can confirm here in Houston, our inventory is exploding. Los Angeles is among the metro areas with the highest increase in canceled sales, due largely to January's devastating wildfires. And we got 2 more videos coming out with those wildfires. Melody and I, boots on the ground. You guys are going to find those videos overwhelming. More home purchases are being canceled, especially in the southeastern part of the country. Just over 41,000 U.S. home purchase agreements fell through in January, equal to 14.3% of homes that went under contract that month. That's up from 13.4% a year earlier, and the highest cancellation rate for this time of year since at least 2017. The article states there are a few reasons today's home buyers are skittish. Now, I'm not necessarily agreeing with them, but let's see what Redfin has to say. Supply is rising and demand is falling. And that's a fact, and demand is already a dumpster fire right now. Housing inventory has risen to its highest level since 2020, giving home buyers more options. At the same time, pending home sales fell to their lowest level on record in January. More supply and less demand means the housing market has tilted in buyers' favor. Thank goodness, finally the pendulum is swinging, with some house hunters backing out during their inspection period because a better house for them comes along. Now, the second thing, economic uncertainty. Redfin agents report that some deals are falling through because buyers are getting cold feet due to widespread economic and political uncertainty. Tariffs, layoffs, and federal policy changes are among the factors contributing to an air of instability. Number three, sticker shock. Mortgage rates and home prices remain stubbornly high, with January's average rate hitting 6.96, an 8-month high, and the median U.S. home sales price rising 4.1%, combined with economic uncertainty. High housing costs are causing some would-be buyers to change their minds. To put this in perspective, housing share of GDP surpasses 16% for first time since 2020. I'm telling you guys this because understand that the housing market plays a big role in our economy. The housing market's not going to prop up the economy, in other words. When we talk about prices, this is a new set of data called Case-Shiller Home Price to CPI ratio. And this is a really clear set of data that shows you guys just how much the housing market is in a bubble. Before we even had lockdowns, the housing market was turning bubbly. So right now, I would call this kind of a triple bubble. We got two peaks right here, really a third peak if you count right here, which is 2020. I mean, you guys, right now, when we look at income, when we look at all the data, when we step back from emotion, it's so clear the housing market is unbelievably toxic. Mitch, can you explain to the viewers just how important the housing market is for the economy?
Okay. Mom and pop is the housing market. Mom and pop is the economy. If you make the economy sick, you de facto have made the economic situation of mom and pop sick. And when mom and pop across the United States in all households realizes what has happened to them, who did it, and how it happened, and by the way, that's all in the criminal complaint that was just filed with Pam Bondi at the DOJ, then they now know who to blame and what has happened to them. What has happened in the prior administration with creation of these debts, you are now feeling the pain of the fraud. But unfortunately, our numbers show that that pain is going to get a lot worse because it goes into the system in the form of the bonds. And if our math is correct, which I believe it is, you're looking at about a 70% devaluation on the school district bonds. But the worse the economy gets, the worse the bonds. So all of a sudden, a lot of bonds across the spectrum end up where the school district bonds are, which is junk status. And in reality, when you've got 70% devaluation, so all that's left is somewhere between 13 cents on the dollar and 30 cents on the dollar. Again, de facto, you are looking at junk status bonds. So the pain is just starting to ramp up. These problems are a direct result of the fraud in the system. And I would strongly ask and suggest that everybody go read that criminal complaint.
I want to say also, you guys, when we talk about solution, because we don't just want to talk about the problem, we want to talk about root and solution, which are probably the more important things. We all kind of know the problem. It's hard for some of us to articulate it because it is complicated. So there's no harm there. But some of the things that we should be doing right now, you guys, just from me to you, we should be saving our money like crazy. We should re-budget how we spend our money. And if we already own a home, what I'm hoping you guys are going to do is help Mitch Mitch and I eliminate property taxes forever. You can do that by joining a bunch of different courses. We have a ton of things to download. Go to the Real Estate Mindset Empowerment Center. Now, if you're not a homeowner, I also have some stuff for you. Go to the Real Estate Mindset Empowerment Center and learn how to purchase a house. And in the meantime, all of us, what we should be doing right now is maintaining and increasing our purchasing power, because odds are we go into a severe recession, we're going to be able to buy things for pennies on the dollar. And I want that to be you, and I want that to be me. Now, other than that, guys, if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.